Alright, people, alright. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم people. Alright, so first of all, let me just do a quick, as always, a sound check just to make sure you can hear all the incoherence that I have to say. Let me just check, bring up Facebook. All right, you're doing it, people. You're doing it. Let me just bring up my YouTube people as well. All right, there I see you. All right, people. Look at that. Where's it gone? Here it is. Guys, I take it the sound is coming through good, loud and clear. Allahu Akbar. So, mi gente, we have tonight a guest, an ustad, a khateeb part-time, somebody who is a coach and an inspiration to many young people, very involved at a grassroots level, Ustad Ismail Shaffi from Leicester. Let's bring him in with all of the awesome insights that he has to contribute to our show. So, assalamu alaikum, Ustad Ismail, ahlan wa sahlan bik.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. It's an honor to be with the king of controversy.
Well, shukran. I'm grateful and duly honored likewise to have you here. And don't worry, we're going to impart some of this after today's episode. You'll probably be stained with this controversy as well now. So.
That's it. I'll be classed. That's it. He's working with one of the
with the Dajjal himself. Oh,
Dajjal himself.
Forget them. It's the Antichrist I represent. it's Sir Lucifer himself. So, all right. So, Ustad, shukran once again, and hailing from Leicester, the Midlands. See, people, it's all happening in the Midlands in the UK. That's what we're talking about. So, right, Ustad, you're somebody, I take it you've born and raised in Leicester. Is that's correct?
Actually, I was born in Malawi, but I was like 6 months old. So you could say I was born and raised here. Yeah.
All right. So, and somebody who you take a very keen interest in sports or health. Not so much. It doesn't have to be sports, but health specifically, and something you're very outspoken about, trying to get people to take care of themselves, especially the Muslim community. In addition to their deen, there should be their good health. So why this preoccupation with health? Obviously, beside it being the obvious, taking care of yourself, but do you feel that Muslims lack in that sector? Is that what you? I'm sure we. All right.
Yeah, so I can remember many years ago. I'm talking like probably 30 years ago. I must have been in my teenage years, and in the famous Jami Masjid in Leicester, there was a Maulana from Pakistan. He came over, and I can still remember his quote, and he said, "Ummat ka hal ye hai, na lar sakte hai, na bhag sakte hai."
Right.
So yeah, that kind of stuck with me for a while. Look, we need to keep fit.
This is the state of the ummah. They can't fight, and they can't, no fight, no flight. So yeah, I mean, since you're involved in the religious sector as well, to some extent, as in trying to inspire religion, deen. I don't mean you don't have to be. It's enough that you're from Leicester to really be involved with the religious circles.
Apparently, we have over 300 ulama, maybe more in our city. That's what they say.
Seriously?
yeah.
What the hell are they all doing? I mean, what goes on in Leicester? Right, so in Leicester, those of you that don't know, you have many of the heavyweight, especially from the Deobandi community, the kingpins right there, home to many of the kingpins, including His Royal Highness Sheikh Riyad al-Haq himself. You have Mufti Adam. Many of you have probably heard more of his son, maybe through social media, Ibn Adam, and Mufti Salim Dorat, or Sheikh Salim Dorat. Sheikh Salim Dorat. So, what's the intra-group thing going on there? Is there harmony or is there rivalry going on?
I'd say there's harmony. There's harmony. It's not like they got beef with each other. They've got their own ways of doing things, and each are just doing their own kind of thing, really. So they've got their own kind of. You got the Abbasid Caliphate going on there, the Umayyad Caliphate going on there.
It's the classic scenario where there's a thing that when I believe it was Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, in his time, somebody said to him that, the Umayyads, because the Umayyads had become re-established in Andalus, Muslim Spain. So there was an attempt that he made to get back, to regain power and stability over there, or not to regain, but to initiate in that sense properly. And so they had some assassination attempt and it failed. So the person got caught and he got, that was the end of him. So when he found out, and the Umayyads, that day and age, what they did is, as a message to send it back, what they did is the assassin, they sent his head. Right? Obviously, they got to make a statement from that day and age. Right? So people looked at Mansur and said, like, what are you going to do about this? So he said, Alhamdulillah alladhi ja'ala baynana wa baynahu al-bahar. He said, well, what can we say? God has placed a sea between us and them. Jallo, let them be. A bit of that sour grapes, once they're like, well, let it be. Right. But speaking of the religious circles, the religious mashayikh, I'm generally speaking, what's going on with this health crisis and the madrasa graduates? I mean, what is going on, man? Have you tried to promote this amongst them?
Yeah, I have tried to. I think people before me, even, they've had special classes or swimming classes for the ulama clergy, so they don't feel that, we're,
swimming. Why swimming?
Yeah, swimming. Yeah, even swimming.
Just so they don't drown.
I think the brother done it with thinking it's a sunnah, it's a good sport. But they try to arrange separate ones for the ulama, so they may feel ashamed coming.
Or women, you mean, to separate them from women? You mean?
yeah. They had a full hide out the place only for the Muslim brothers.
They're like, is it even fun if we go and the women it's going to be segregated? What's the point? They're like, what's the point of being saved in swimming if it's only going to be men? No, but I mean, there is a huge issue with okay, there's a stereotype that the general Maulana, he's somebody who loves his biryani, he loves his halwa, hase halwa. This is a stereotype, isn't it? This, people say, Qari Saab, Molvi Saab and his halwa, and then you see some of these potbelly kind of Maulanas. I mean, why isn't this? Why do you feel there isn't, that people are not drawn towards having this kind of health? Because when you think about it, historically, obviously people lived in very different times, I understand that, but there was also one is just the day and age was tough in the past, which it was, but there was also a kind of culture with there was an understanding that it was, that people wanted to have this kind of physique, or they wanted, like Imam Malik himself would make a point that every single day he would eat a certain amount of meat just for and he explained it. He said, it's for my posture. He said, because I see that when a person has a strong physical posture, there is an awe to him. And he said, and when people, إِذَا هَابَهُ النَّاسِ هَابُ الْعِلْمِ, that they will, through him, they will also have that kind of awe for knowledge, because he's the person speaking and talking and teaching. Whereas if he's very just, where people kind of look down on him, then they will look down upon knowledge. And when we've got so many examples of this in our literature, of different scholars, this whole having a warrior physique, having this kind of, there's a lot of this in our literature. But why do you think there is this huge gap though in the real world? Or is that just here? Do you think that's just here? It's not in other parts of the world? What's your thoughts?
Generally, I think the scholar clergy are quite unfit, illa mashallah, some of them. Usually, I think it's the lack of the understanding, the importance of keeping fit. Even they probably know the sunnah of eating, 1/3 at least, keep it for air, for food, for water, what have you. Obviously, we knew from the seerah that the Prophet ﷺ knew archery, he knew wrestling, he knew how to, obviously, swordmanship, etc.
Horse riding. Yeah, these things are very difficult. Even things like horse riding, they're very demanding physically.
Yeah, and the famous story of him and wrestling that Ruqana.
Yeah. Right, there is. Yeah.
So obviously he knew some kind of martial art as well. That was the martial art at the time. So you need some. Obviously, he must have learned the art of wrestling and the other things as well. So in the day we're living now, everything's fast food. Our food is all processed. Our Asian diet is probably one of the most unhealthiest diets, which is not sustained for this country. And you just pile it on. And when you start, I don't know how it's in the Darul Uloom, whether you're quite active, but once you come out of that environment and you're probably at work, teaching, whatever they're doing, and they don't show any kind of importance that we need to look after this amana, this body Allah's given us. But that may be the main reason.
Religious things aside, it's people just want to look good anyway. I mean, and even like you could go to a normal person and you don't really need to bring up. I mean, it's great to bring up examples from the Sunnah and from the Quran and from the Hadith about taking care of yourself, but a person would just know that, look, I ought to take care of myself. It's like common knowledge. But yeah, I mean, is it just that it becomes a lazy culture, or is it just it's too hard work, to take care of one's physique, or is it just our Desi culture? Is the Desi culture very is that to blame?
It's partly to blame of our diet's not the best diet. I'll be honest, in this Ramadan, sorry, not the Ramadan, the lockdown, I was 12.5 stone.
12.5.
The gym's being 12.5 stone. I'm not very tall, 5'7". So
but that's not heavy though, 12.5.
Yeah, 12.5. But I was carrying a bit of fat with me as well. So even though I was working out in the gym, so the gym's being closed down, I thought, what should I do? I said I'll go on a shred diet. So I worked it all out, all the macros, the proteins, etc., how much I need to take. 3 months I went on the shredding, and lost about just over a stone. So it's all to do with your mindset. And like I said, our food, Asian food, is one of the unhealthiest food.
But it's incredibly tasty.
Yes, the tastiest food, but it's the most unhealthiest food, unfortunately.
I mean,
and one Maulana, he goes to me, "Hum zyada haqdar hai murgi ke liye, kitne saal humko murga bana para." So they're eating a lot of chicken, a lot of meat, a lot of things. So yeah,
There you
that's
go,
what they
people.
have a lot. They have a lot of dawats, a lot of
It's
dawats. I'm
all
not.
about the biryani. It's all about the biryani. The lamb biryani, I've got to say. That has to be, from all of the biryanis, I think, my personal favorite. But yeah, there is this thing. But yeah. So with with all that going on, this whole right, we've slightly lost you, Ustad. With you're back, you're
Yeah,
back, you're back.
you're
We
back.
slightly lost you there. The biryani almost interrupted us, but so tell us. Leicester is heavily Muslim. It's got a strong Muslim kind of concentration, just like Birmingham as well. But however, in Leicester, do you feel that there is? This is just a quick note. I just wanted to kind of touch it because there's a strong. I feel there's much more of a religious atmosphere, or am I just? Is that just to me? It appears that way, or do you feel that that's a fair statement?
Yeah, we do have a religious environment,
Yeah,
which is good. I'd say that. Yeah, we've
yeah.
got, top of my head, 3 established Darul Ulooms.
But
So
it's
yeah,
not just the Darul Uloom. Like, I mean, that's obviously part of it. But I feel that there's a strong, like Birmingham has probably, I could be wrong, but it might actually have the largest Muslim communities within the UK within any city.
okay.
But and I know proportionately speaking, Leicester is similar. Like if you're looking at the ratio, there's a similar percentage of Muslims. Yeah, I assume in Leicester as well. But it's just that Birmingham has a larger population overall. But you see, I don't get a religious feel necessarily about Birmingham. There's tons of masjids, but and you get certain pockets, and you get big mosques and stuff. But I see it more cultural. But I get this kind of impression that there's a lot more perceived religiosity in the Leicester Muslims. Maybe because of this is the impression I get. Like with, let's say, the Gujarati community, Muslim Gujarati community, I get that there's a lot more of the perceived, the apparent religiosity, the madrasa students. You see all the hats, you see all the beards. Or is it just that appears to me because as a slight outsider? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think you're kind of right in the sense that uh, there is a lot of people, mashallah, well, practicing the outward sunnats, if you want to call them. Our
I
Salafi
I
brothers
wouldn't
would
call him
disagree.
that sunnah, but okay.
Like I say, our Salafi brothers would probably disagree.
Yeah,
But
they would
it's
definitely.
uh, it's like you say, like I know a few of my friends, their women wear the niqab, they
Hmm.
wear the veil, and they say when we go on holiday, they just whip it off.
Hmm.
So who are you wearing the veil for? Is it just to show society that we're religious? And the same way can go to the thobe or whatever you might be wearing. Uh, so sometimes it just becomes like a uniform. Like if you don't wear the jubba, you're not religious anymore. You're going to have the Tablighi brothers knocking on your door. Let's bring this brother back. So sometimes certain things have been overemphasized, you know,
Yeah.
uh, whereas rather than our character, how we are interacting with other people, it's just become, you just be judged on your exterior. Has this guy got a beard, a big fist beard or a big jubba? He's on the deen. He's reaching Jannah. Guy's not got this. He's going astray. We need to bring him back. Don't look at his character. Don't look at his morals, his values, what he's about. Just judge him. Unfortunately, he has come to that mindset,
Do you
which I
feel?
thought you would.
Do you feel as well that this kind of when you have that community, that kind of community, if I can use that way, you've got people living very closely. I take it you're from this. You're Gujarati Indian from the same community, yeah. So does it become then a perspective? Sorry, a phenomenon where you see people are just policing each other. This kind of panopticon. You have this what Jeremy Bentham and other people they gave this philosophical concept of we could create a prison which would be designed in a particular way that we're actually the prisoners would end up policing the other because there'd be transparency. He kind of came up with this model. They didn't build it in the end, but his whole purpose was it would reduce the state's job on observing them, but the inmates would end up, because they're all observing each other, they wouldn't be up to stuff. So it's this was this kind of panopticon, this kind of concept. So what you get is a community that is maybe themselves not so sold on an idea. Some people, like you said, this lady now, I'm familiar with this kind of idea of like women that they will wear the hijab or the niqab in this case only in that community.
Yeah.
But when they're out of that community, they won't wear it. Now, to me, I mean, I don't have a problem with whether they wear it or don't wear it, but to me, you see, that feels like, you see, there's a certain amount of pressure from that community that they have to conform to. It's not necessarily that they might believe that I have to do this, but I have to do it whilst I'm in this particular environment. And I find that quite, like it's almost like a self-policing mechanism. Yeah, I don't know if you feel that pressure.
Yeah, that's how it's become. Unfortunately, it's like you say, it's just become an outward religiosity. So it's artificial in a way. So you'd think, mashallah, alhamdulillah, but when you find out, you don't go looking for it, but what themselves will tell you that this is what happens. Then you think it's just artificial. Who are you doing these actions for? Is it to please the people or Allah? So then these people have to question themselves.
Yeah.
So definitely there's this artificial religiosity.
Do you ever get any of that because you're part of a community within that, from that community? Do you get people kind of saying to you, or having to justify why you don't have a long beard or why you're not wearing a thobe? Or
I used to be very heavily involved in the Tablighi Jamaat work, you know. To be honest.
Purana Sati.
Purana Sati, yeah. Purana Sati, yeah. Spent 4 months, you know. No, it's no doubt. You gotta give credit where it's due. He has done a lot of good worldwide, especially when it started, when people were really far from the deen, didn't know the basics. And it caused a revolution, and it changed a lot of people's lives.
I have to say, those of you that don't know, I have mentioned this before, that going on Tabligh was a pivotal moment in my life that would actually change the direction of my entire life, life trajectory. And I'm not overstating that. You see, when as a 16-year-old kid, when I went on Jamaat, I went for 10 days, but I ended up, because of the amount of, it became this huge thing, this huge issue. I mean, just, my parents were dead against Tablighi Jamaat, yeah. So when I decided to go, I wanted to go. I used to really, and this something just very quickly, the thing was all really character. I used to like the character, like they had very good manners, very good, amazing characters, some of the people that were involved, and we were drawn to that character. And because some of my friends were going on Jamaat, it seemed fun, and I wanted to go, but my parents said that no, these are Wahhabis, you don't go with them. But I wanted to go, and then I accepted it. I said that, I'm not going to go. And I went to the local masjid, and my friends were there. I mean, my mates, and they were all kind of like, they brought their clothes and brought their bags, and everybody's in the spirit of, we're going away it was Christmas 10 days, and I'm just left out. And I thought, you know what? F it. I'm going as well. So I went home, got my stuff, put it in, and I just ran away.
Serious. Oh,
But this became such a huge it became such a fiasco, kind of like obviously, as you can imagine, my parents were very strict, and I ended up getting into a lot of trouble for that. I was chucked out of my house and stuff like this afterwards. And but this whole struggle, what it did was it shaped a particular direction in my life that I couldn't imagine at the time. Like at the time, I just thought I just want to be with my friends, and it's that spirit. And I didn't realize how much of a profound effect this would have. Even later on, when I chose to study, the only reason it was possible was because I had taken that step previously with Tablighi Jamaat, and my family kind of felt that, even if we stop him, he'll still do it. And so, but the Tablighi Jamaat have had in my early days a very profound impact on my life, and I'm very grateful for that. So, yeah, sorry, you were
yeah,
saying, yeah, yeah.
yeah, mashallah. So yeah, it had a great impact on my life. I came from the area of Highfields as well, notorious for its crime. You know, there's two sides of Highfields. One where there was predominantly the Afro-Caribbean community that I grew up mostly on that side, and there was a lot of crime that came with our Afro-Caribbean brethren at that time. So yeah,
The man them.
yeah, the man there. So yeah, I was moving in different circles, and so yeah, the league did help, put your kind of some of your priorities on track, and like you said, it just kind of it's like this seclusion. You go away, and
I feel that you see, what they have for a certain, um, for a certain people going through a certain stage in life, it's amazing. Like
yeah,
there are a certain people that need to be they need to isolate from their environment. They need to just be removed and taken, extracted
yeah,
and
like a rehab, like a
exactly,
rehab, yeah, yeah,
exactly. It is rehab for a certain level. Like the person has to be at a certain level where they're struggling, where they don't have an immense knowledge of Islam, they're very distanced, and they go through this rehab process where they're being taught things like, let's go over the Salah, read it to me. Why don't you read these short surahs of the Quran? They live in a mosque, they attend all the prayers, they do this for like 10 days. They're encouraged on, like, you have to stand up and give the bayan, and it's really nerve-wracking. Like, you have to stand up and chair number, and
yeah,
but what happens is there is a point where the Tablighi Jamaat, because the process doesn't, like, there's no, that basic level is brilliant for people at that level, but then there's no level 1, level 2, it's just always that, like, if you develop a bit further, it can become a huge hindrance. That's what I
mm.
felt. I don't know if you share that experience.
Yeah. It's you just get to a level, and thereafter it's. Um, Even if you can't go to study, became a Maulana. There's countless
Yeah,
people who became Maulanas afterwards or what have you, and that's it. And you're limited to a certain level, and you only talk within the 6 points,
yeah.
and that's it. So you are kind of limited. So I have to say that. But then going back to my own story, where in the year 2000, when there's a lot of things going on in my life. And like I said, I just needed some time out. And even my dad goes, "Why don't you go 4 months?"
four
And I just
months.
thought, yeah, 4 months.
Wow.
I never spent 40 days before. All of a sudden, boom, 4 months.
वाह
And
वाह
then I
वाह
just
वाह
went.
वाह
Yeah,
काबिलियत
huh?
नहीं कबूलियत होती
That's the one. So I'll be
You
honest,
gotta
it
love their
was.
dialogues though.
Yeah,
Their
yeah,
script.
yeah. So I could be honest, it was interesting. It was kind of hard as well, going to India, shipped off to
Oh,
India.
you went to
I
India.
spent like
Damn.
yeah, I spent
Okay.
40 days here, 140 days just to get kind of to the routine. Then after that, the next was shipped off to India, and it was interesting. You just first time I've been to India. See all the poverty, see all the first thing. As soon as you land in India, you just the stench. where have I come to? Yeah. So it was interesting, and basically, cut a long story short, after the 4 months, you kind of realize, where's my life going, what I need to do, and you kind of brainwashed in a way as well
Yeah.
that I have to make this my life, my purpose of my life, the Tablighi Jamaat movement.
Because they fit the entire Quran and Seerah into this.
Yeah.
Like, if there's any incident in the Quran, they'll just say, see, subhanallah, going in the path of Allah. And they just fit every story into that. Like, there could be a story where a companion walks out of his house and goes to the next village, and they go, subhanallah, see, walking in the path, Allah, Allah.
A lot of the incidents are to do with jihad, and obviously they'll interpret it to be in the path
or
of Allah.
Any kind of anything, they will just fit it. It doesn't matter what the incident is. They'll just reshape it, and they'll just go, there it is.
So yeah, so I spent a lot of time in Jamaat. I was active with them for about, I would say, quite active, 12 years, 12 to 13 years.
12 years? Bloody hell.
I went to a lot of countries, on chillas. And then I came to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore, I went to one, I can remember, Cyprus was the last country I went to. There was no baths.
Nope.
So we had to take, there's no, in the masjid, there's no.
Oh, in the masjid. Okay.
Yeah, in the masjid, it was in Cyprus. They weren't designed for Jamaats to come. So you're having, like a bath once a week, and I suffer from like acne, oily skin, and I'm getting all these spots everywhere, and even the toilets were hard, and it's, I'll be honest, it's mujahida, you get me. And then you got 6 people who, some of them you've never seen in your life, and they've got these odd habits that you got to accustomed to them for 40 days. Yeah.
You know what it is? These kind of things of life survival skills, or having to adjust to awkward situations, or putting up with people, these things in and of themselves can be, to be fair, they can be an invaluable experience, because it's a life skill, isn't it? Dealing with people is difficult, so you're learning that. But I feel the overall mission, the philosophy, you see, like you saying you're doing it for 12 years, I think very soon, way before 12 years, it starts, you've outgrown it. Like, you need more than what they have to offer.
And okay, you're right. But it does kind of keep you grounded in certain things, you obviously show importance to certain things, etc., outward, sunnahs, etc. But then after, when I just said to myself, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Why am I doing? I was questioning myself. Why am I doing this? Because once you don't spend your 40 days, it's a guilt trip.
Yeah. It's a cult.
Yeah.
It becomes a cult.
Yeah. In certain circumstances, I've made it into like a cult as well. So then I questioned myself, why am I doing this? Do I want to do this? Then if I don't do it, am I doing it just to please people? And I said to myself, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Then that's it. Then I slowly, kind of swayed away. I had all the Tablighi brothers, visiting your house, this. And I remembered I wanted to get into boxing. And the guy came to my house and he said, look, slowly you're going to do this, you want to do this, then you'll be gone astray. He's just trying to say you're going to go astray. Yeah. So, and in my head, I was saying to myself, you can tell me what you want. I'm going to be doing boxing. Yeah. So I went on the journey. The journey was to have an amateur fight, but things didn't work out. I did get amateur registered, but it's a long story, but things didn't work out. But I did spar regularly and got to that amateur level. So that was that.
Yeah.
That
was just to clarify, when I said that the thing about them being a cult, what I mean by that is that when a person no longer actively participates in something, like it has an active participation, like you go out on khuruj, you go on Jamaat, you do your 40 days, do 10 days, do 3 days. When you cease to do this, you are then this kind of one guilt tripped, but then there's this kind of boycotting, this kind of and it's not restricted to just this group. There's many groups that do this kind of method, but you can feel the pressure. It's not something you can't feel. You can feel, you know, the looks, the people talking. Oh my God, you know, this person's gone astray. And surprisingly, this happens with many things. And I'm not just picking on Tablighi Jamaat, but I'm just giving an example that even with learning knowledge, there's a huge discouragement to learn knowledge. And I remember when when I wanted to study as well, many people kind of told me that, look, oh, studying's bad. You know, like they say, you know, knowledge. Like, look, the shaitan went astray. He had knowledge. You know, you're better off just doing service in the path of Allah, going on Jamaat and help. This is the real asal maqsad ye hai, you know, bringing people to Allah, doing da'wah, learning knowledge is, you know, it's about the nafs and it's about this and. But that's surprising because it's knowledge of Islam. But there wasn't this. But, you know, speaking about, since we've ended up speaking about Tablighi Jamaat, I am very surprised to see that this was one group that I felt would never fall into politics, like as in internal, bitter division politics. You know, they're this group that used to. One thing I did used to totally rate them about was their good character, which I still, I mean, I haven't been that much in touch with them for the recent years, but still, that was something that still I remember till today, the good character, husn al-akhlaq, and the fact that they used to say that, look, everybody's a Muslim, you know, we don't differentiate, we don't, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a Brilvi, it doesn't matter if you're a Deobandi, you're Ahl Hadith, you're Shia, we're all Muslim. You know, they had this very spirit, this inclusive spirit. And I could never see that they would fall victim to this kind of division of infighting, which has happened now. What the hell is that about, man?
So obviously spending what 13 years with the group, with the Tablighi Jamaat, even though by that time I've started doing other things. When the split did happen, it was heartbreaking because obviously, like you said, it's one group that on a global level where they've all been on one platform. So and then it became two groups. So he became Maulana Saad. He said we should keep an Amir who is the great grandson of Maulana Ilyas, the founder of the
Maulana Saad is the great grandson.
Yeah, he's the great grandson of Maulana Ilyas.
For the viewers who are not familiar, what had happened was the initial division is to do with leadership. Should the leadership be confined to an individual or a collective council, a shura? This is the concept that split it up, wasn't it? So Maulana Saad was and the key main centers were both, like you had India, you had Pakistan. India is obviously the main way, but you had Pakistan was an active player as well, like Raivan. And so this is what's led to the split then, isn't it? Part of... Yes.
Yeah, so the division was you either have one Amir, Maulana Saad, or you have a shura that runs it. And they're from Pakistan, from India, and some probably Bangladesh even. So that's the division. So they call themselves the Alim Shura. So there's no one particular leader, but the shura decides
council
within them, I think. Yeah, council. And then you got Maulana Saad's camp where they said he's the Amir. So yeah, it became infighting. The Alim Shura started. Some of the members started to call these group of Maulana Saad the Sadianis. Sadiani. So and vice versa, there must have been name calling, but it actually ended up, these were known to be the most like kindest, loving people. It ended up in fist fighting in Bangladesh. There was actually deaths, you know.
Bloody hell, I didn't hear of that. Okay, whoa.
There was footage of some people got beaten to death by two parties. But I think it's kind of mellowed down now.
Okay.
And now it's just become two camps.
You know, you had, what was it, Haji Abdul Wahab. He was the elder from Raivan, from Pakistan. What camp was he?
So this the Alim Shura saying he was with them,
Okay,
but
okay.
there's other rumors saying that he never specifically said
Who he
he
was?
was encouraging people to go back to Nizamuddin.
Is he?
Obviously,
He's
he
still
died.
alive, or has he
No,
passed
he
away? He's
passed away.
passed away now. Okay.
Passed away. Yeah.
Okay.
So
May Allah have mercy on him. Okay.
no,
Right.
he was a good guy.
Yeah. So okay. Right. Damn. But all this controversy, fighting, police being called. Even in the UK, there was so many issues I heard about in London. I think they had some murkers or something, and
Yeah, the London Marcus. Yeah.
there was some
So,
kind of like, just crazy. But wow, it just goes to show all good things come to an end.
come to
Right. So, how did it impact the Darul Ulooms in Leicester, like Sheikh Riyad al Haq's or Mufti Adams or these other Sheikh Salim Dawrat's place?
yeah. So when this split happened, the spiritual father of many of the ulama in Leicester, Sheikh Yusuf Mutala,
Yeah.
rahmatullah alayh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
he was closely aligned with Sheikh Zakaria Khandalvi, obviously, who was the nephew of Sheikh Ilyas, the founder of Tablighi. So when it all kind of happened, he took sides with Maulana Assad.
Did
So
he?
yeah, he
Ah.
took sides. He said, "Look, there's many things I know behind the scenes that you lot don't know about," and basically he was groomed to be the next leader, Maulana Assad, and
Are
basically
you grooming you naughty naughty?
so yeah, so he should be the next. He should be the next rightfully leader, basically. So you had a lot of people who are upset. And what happened was there was three, four main Buzrugs in Nizamuddin Markaz, the main
Okay.
Markaz.
Who were they? Who were
And
these?
they were, yeah, so these two main ones everybody knew in the Tablighi circle was Sheikh Ibrahim Devla and Sheikh Ahmad Latsab.
Latsab,
Both of
yeah.
them were,
I've heard of them too, actually.
you heard of them, yeah. So
Mhm.
both of them happened to be Gujarati,
Mhm.
and not only Gujarati, Baruchi. So from Gujarat, you have another state, either Surat or Baruch.
Okay.
So they came from Baruch. So when it all kicked off, Blackburn Marcus, from my research, they came, a contingent of them, to Dewsbury, the main Marcus in UK, say, what's happening? The two main Buzrugs have left the Marcus. They left for their reasons. Yeah. And they said, we need to follow this Ali Mishura momentum that was going on. And the only reason, to my research, is the Blackburn Shura people, or the people contingency, happened to be Baruchis themselves, Gujarati Baruchis. Whether these two Maulanas, Ibrahim Latsab or Ahmad Latsab, were Bengali, Bhopali, I couldn't see them jumping up and down to say we need to do something about it. Because they're Baruchi, but Gujarati, they were jumping up and down that their beats is gone in the Marcus. So that was happened. Then there was other things. Other people wanted to benefit from the split, to become leaders, etc., etc. I don't want to start name calling, but yeah, it
Wow.
became. So what happened now? In England, you have got about, I think, 5 marquesses. So the certain people who wanted the split, the Alim Shura, they managed to persuade the leaders of these marquesses that we should break away from Dewsbury now, because Dewsbury stayed with Nizamuddin.
Nizamuddin is Maulana Saad.
Yeah, Mossad, yeah.
Okay.
So the main Dewsbury Marcus stayed with Nizamuddin, Mossad, and the other Marcuses detached away. So that's what happened.
Wow.
Certain individuals and scholars got involved, and they broke them away.
People, this is the politics that goes on within the Muslim world.
But yeah, it's a whole, I think, book on the split, but it's sad.
You could.
But then you had Mullah Yusuf Motala, who took the side of Mullah Nasad. So now they was like, whoa, what's happening? Why is he getting involved? He's not a Tablighi, even though he was from UK, the first Jamaat that went out for 4 months. Maulana Yusuf Motala was in that Jamaat in
Okay.
the 1970s. 60s apparently, and they had a car accident on the way. 2 people.
It's a sad memory, but yeah.
Yeah. So apparently he was part. So the guy, he's not. He's more Sufi inclined. What has he got to? How can he put his 2 pence worth into? Obviously, he's got a big following. So a lot of this
Of
had a
course.
set of scholars that followed him. So our Leicester Jami Mosque followed, accepted Sheikh Yusuf Mutala's opinion, and after that split, they had a Maulana Saad actually came to UK.
Okay.
He came to Leicester. Yeah, he had.
Oh right, I do remember there were some photos going around of Maulana Saad in the UK.
Yeah. So he came to UK. He came to Leicester. So, and apparently Maulana Salim Dorat's took the other side, took the Ale Mishura side. So yeah, that's what happened.
Wow. Sheikh Yusuf Mutala Saab, is he also the teacher of our beloved Sheikh Abdurrahim Limbada Saab? Or
yeah, Farzan, no.
We have an entanglement, Sheikh Abdurrahim Limbada and me. I'd love to get him on MindTrap if you're in touch with him.
I know people who know him, so maybe that could be possible.
Oh wow, that would be amazing. Yeah. Do you feel that this mindset of the clergy generally, that you've got the kind of like the madrasa graduates, what you see a lot in Leicester basically, can this change here in the UK? Because can it just get to becoming a bit normal, or will it, because it is like, even though it's not sometimes stamped out, but it is a very cult-like mentality. You know, this is how we dress, this is what we do, this is our thing, these are our buzurg, this is how we take the deen. Can this become morph into an indigenous British Islam, do you think? Or is it too, यार नहीं होगा इन लोगों से?
I've not yet seen a black sheikh come over from another country, let alone UK. You know, we got sheikhs from Mauritania, I don't know, Mali, Nigeria. Islam's been there longer than any of the Darul Ulooms from India.
Yeah.
So we've not been exposed to any black sheikh. Forget black sheikh. We hardly get any Arab sheikhs from the Middle East. Like recently, I don't know if he was one of your teacher, Sheikh Itar. Is it Sheikh
Nuruddin Itar? Nuruddin Itar.
Yeah, Nuruddin Itar. You know, after reading his biography, you'll be, whoa, this guy's an incredible man. There must be many like him. Well, obviously, we've not heard of, etc.
But you know, if you get people like from the Arab world, let's say Mashayikh, or from these other places, Turkey or somewhere, even the Africans, but I suppose with the Africans they could say, well, that's, you know, maybe they don't grow so much, some, you know, their beards are not that long, but these other Arab shuyukh that will come, they will be clean shaven, or they will have a beard, probably even a bit shorter than yours. Now, that will be a problem for people who...
I think that's one of the main problems, isn't it? That's why they're calling them.
Yeah, because they'll be like, here comes the great Sheikh al-Hadith, and he'll come in wearing a suit.
Yeah, this is the Sheikh al-Hadith. He's got a suit and he's got like a probably grade 2 or grade 3 beard, and they'll be like, all these years you've been telling us that it's haram and this and etc. How it won't go down too well.
That's so, it. And then they'll be like, well, even Muft Abu Layth has a longer beard than that. But he has an earring and a fade. What is it with the fades, man? Why do they hate the fades?
It's Zamakan, you know, the Jamaican thing.
Oh,
they started it. It's the bad man thing started it.
Is that what they say?
That's because back in the days, only our Jamaican, West Indian brethren would do the fades. Nobody would do that. If I had this haircut,
yeah,
30 years ago, my dad would took me out of the house.
But I mean, what do you want people to have? Like just one length hair? That would mean you have no hairstyle. That'd just be like, you just grow out your hair.
Yeah. So certain things like even length of your trousers above the ankles and these kind of things, even from my minimum, knowledge I have, that even in Hanafi fiqh, apparently in Shami, it's there's nothing wrong with it. It's obviously the niyyah you're wearing
Yeah,
it
of
with.
course, of course.
Yeah. So and if anything, even in the other fiqh, they're quite lenient. So this, like I said, is too much. They don't give the different opinions. Look, there is this opinion. If you want to take it, there's this, but there's this opinion as well. You understand? There's nothing wrong with it. You would find other scholars doing it as well, and likewise with the beard, etc. There's many multiple reasonings and opinions, but the thing is, you tend to get told only one side of the story.
Have you ever sat down, had any kind of these? I know you are a part-time Khateeb. Have you, with the local ulama, have you had any of these kind of discussions or run-ins in this sense? Or
yeah,
maybe
I would
Ibn
say run-ins,
Adam, or because Sheikh Riyad al-Haq, these are local to you, Leicester kind of mashayikh. Get them on MindTrap, by the way. Get them on MindTrap. I'd love to have Sheikh Riyad al-Haq on MindTrap.
Yes, some of their students, I'm in touch with their Maulanas themselves, and I tell them, and they some of them, they say, yeah, we can understand where you're coming from. And then some of them, like recently, I put a message out on Eid.
Okay.
Our Eids, there's no decoration happening. I can remember, so the way I worded it, I wrote it, I go, growing up here in UK in the 80s, it was more exciting for me Christmas at school than Eid. Because in school we were having parties, we were dressing up, and there were decorations up, and you ate nice food, and there was games, and it was exciting for Christmas when you're young. And whereas on Eid time, you wore nice clothes, you ate a biryani or whatever, and that was it. Might get some Eid, a pound coin here and there, but there was nothing else exciting about it. So the kind of message I was pointing out is there's no harm, because when the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, they were celebrating these 2 days, and he asked them, what are these? He goes, and Sahaba said, in the Jahaliyyah days, we used to celebrate these days. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said to the effect that Allah has replaced it with the Eid, you rejoice and celebrate. These are our 2 days of rejoicing. So surely they must have rejoiced in a manner, doing things, celebrating.
Music.
So yeah. I don't want to get into that. Yeah, so that's another controversy.
Okay, the duff, the drum.
All right, keep it to the duff, man. I'm living in Deoband society here, man. They're gonna outcast me, bro.
I always found that strange that God would say, you know what, if he's playing the drum, chalo theek hai. If he touches the guitar, throw him in hell. But okay, but is that what you mean, more of a celebratory? They should celebrate Eid more in a festival like manner.
Yeah, festival. Decorate your houses, even if it means the outside of your houses, make people know it's Eid. The only celebration is the Leicester City Council. They put up some lights. This year, because of the lockdown, they never put it up in the Eids. So I go, even there's no Eid, every year they do it. So it's sad. There's no. If you will live within the non-Muslims, they would not know whether you're celebrating anything. It's a means of dawah as well. You can tell them, look, this is our Eid, this is why we celebrate it, etc., etc. And so I put this message down, and one Maulana goes back to me and he goes, you know what? It's a fine line. You could be imitating the Christians. There's a very fine line here. What next? Eid tree. What do you want to eat tree?
That would be interesting. An eid tree. A palm tree.
A palm tree. Yeah.
This dawah thing. This is something you speak on quite a bit, isn't? What do you think? Should people be giving dawah here in the UK? Should we, as Muslims, or what's?
I personally think they should. I know you disagree. I've seen some of the clips.
And I'm not anti, obviously. It's like Sheikh Adam Kelwick. I had him on recently on MindTrap, and he
Yeah,
said to me, to be honest, I was kind of surprised that he said that some people understood my message to mean that. I didn't ever think anybody would understand that from what I was saying. So he said that some people were assuming that I'm saying Islam is a bad thing, and anybody who converts to Islam, they've done a bad thing. I was quite surprised, because I thought, I mean, that's not even what I said. So I don't know why anybody would understand that from it. But I did feel that da'wah does more harm to Islam here, definitely, than it does good. I mean, when you say, because when people say let's do da'wah, how does one do da'wah? Because what do they do?
all right. There's different. Obviously, there's people doing different methods. Some people have the stalls out on the city centre, giving out, explaining, etc. The basics of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way. Other ways, some people, I don't know, they just have like a Islamic Awareness Day or something like
Sure.
this, etc.
I mean, okay, that I think is an absolutely good idea. Like things like, not this latter one of saying, like,
Yeah,
let's say there's a certain place and you want to have an Islamic Awareness Day, like in a university, in a college, in a school, in some kind of an institution. We're gonna create an awareness about a religion. I think that's magnificent. There's nothing wrong with that. I forget wrong. I think that's very positive, very good. I would fully support that. The other things about stalls or standing, just saying out, just raising your voice, shouting, saying, look, oh, Islam is the truth, Islam is the truth, take this leaflet, Islam is the truth. I mean, does it really explain Islam?
yeah. I don't think the shouting notes or the say yeah come this that. But there are certain people where they're probably just looking for the certain answers. They're halfway there.
Sure.
They probably already believe there's a creator. There should be only one creator. Certain things missing in the puzzle. So by you having a stall or you doing something, they found you now. You've been able to answer some of the questions that they were able to answer, and boom, before you know it, that's what he was looking for. So more than shouting and screaming, so just show your presence.
Sure.
And
Like, let's
sometimes,
say you have a stall and it has a sign, even if you take away the
yeah,
shouting,
yeah,
it has a poster, and you've got these people standing there, like they do in a lot of these city centers, and they give out leaflets and stuff like this. Isn't this a very modern thing? Do we
it's a
think?
modern thing.
Because people in the past, Muslims in the past, would
They don't
never
do that.
have done this kind of da'wah. I mean, I'm not aware of actually Muslims doing any da'wah in the past. I don't know if they've ever. When did Muslims ever do da'wah in the past? I've never been. I'm not. I mean, I know in the time of the Prophet spoke about Islam, and the companions, because they are around the Prophet, spoke of his message. But once Islam expanded somewhat after the Prophet's lifetime, let's say during the reign of Bani Umayyah, once the kingdoms are set up, I've never heard of da'wah like ever being conducted. Like, who conducted the da'wah? What did those people actually do? I'd be curious to know. Like, did they used to, they wouldn't go and just stop people and tell them, you need to become Muslim and stuff like. I mean, I'm not familiar with this kind of stuff, so
Yeah. As far as I know, I think the jizya just made them become Muslim after Muslims.
You see, no, I don't actually think that. You see, I think,
No.
right. I think that people in the past were much more. You see, it's strange, because when we look at the past today, when we look at anything, we're looking through our own lens. Yeah, like how we see the world. Religion today, people, for the most part, are very inflexible when it comes to religion today. they're not like religion today is a very private matter, and it's to do with really your own connection with the divine and the afterlife and stuff like this. That's rituals and that. You see, in the past, religion was more about your well-being in this world. So today it isn't. Like today, people are not worried about, are the crops going to grow because God is not unhappy with us. This isn't, it's like what somebody had written, an author, where he said that, he said that what imams and rabbis and priests had been trying for, and religious leaders had been trying for, 2 millennia, 2,000 years, within one to at most 200 years, at the moment investors and bankers and scientists came on the field, they resolved those issues. Like there's people no longer will seek God for things like crops and stuff like food, and they'll be grateful to God, but they're not going to be like let's say, like they might make dua to God, but they're not worried about this curse that, oh my God, God is going to curse us and we're not going to get rain this year. The weather specialists will tell them there will be rain. They will tell them we've got these chemicals that will kill the pesticide, it will kill the pests. It will, bad crops still happen, but people for the most part feel quite safe in the hands of the world specialists. So religion is now to do with the akhirah, it's to do with our personal conscience. It's not to do with, if I think his God is more powerful, I should go to his God. And in the past, people were doing that. So I feel that when they saw success, and they saw Muslims were successful because, they were the rising empire. So the neighboring people did feel that look, actually, you know what? I think his God works. My God is obviously failing. I'm going to go with his God. and I think these kind of things, this is how religion would spread so easily in the past. It wouldn't spread like that today. Today, people are very cautious about religion, and we're not interested in institutionalized religions. And generally, there are some people, like you said, who are prepared. But what are your...
atheism is on the rise. So if anything, it's probably fastest growing ideology.
Yeah, I could agree with that. That I think atheism is definitely... don't you think that people of religion are responsible for that, like as in the clergy, for the rise of atheism to some extent, not for the whole thing, but
I wouldn't say they're to blame, but I would say they're not very well equipped to answer some of the questions that even Muslim, well, now they're called ex-Muslims, they've left the fold of Islam, and they've had some basic, probably prove to me how God exists. And I don't think the clergy's equipped to even answer some of, you need some kind of, if not training, you must have read some kind of books, etc. If you can't answer them, if they're thinking, well, if the Maulana doesn't know, who's going to tell me? And so I think that's a field they need to equip themselves with more than ever before.
Definitely. There's the difficult questions that atheists put to you, like the problem of evil, all of these things, like how, prove to me the existence of God and so on.
Yeah.
But also, you see, this, when I said that they are to some extent responsible, it's because one is fate, not being able to answer the questions. Okay, that's one point. But what about the stuff they are doing proactively? That stuff is also chasing people away from the deen. Like they have made religion into this very, this small, airtight, like a very controlling set of rules. They've shrouded it in culture. They've, you mentioned earlier on a particular dress, a particular look. There's a lot of these things scare people away from religion as well.
Yeah, well, you got a point there where if you're trying to fit everybody in one box, then it's not going to be, for how can I explain it? The dynamics now, what the youth or the teenagers are facing is totally different to what I was, probably to some degree maybe, but on a fitna level, on a terms of what they're going through now, it's much more worse than what we probably went through 20, 30 years ago. So the challenges and obstacles they're facing now, and if you're going to say, let's just do the same thing our Islamic community done 30 years ago, carry on, then that same model's not going to work. And like you said, it would eventually take people away from coming to the masjid, etc. So definitely we need to evolve into different things, different activities, different initiatives. And like you said, Islam's not just about how you dress. There's more to it than how you dress.
I know that because you work very closely with the younger generation, you're a boxing coach as well, and they're obviously speaking to you about the issues. This statement of yours, I agree with you, but I'm curious on your take of it. That when you said, look, the younger people today are exposed to a greater level of fitna. Now, fitna can mean many things for different people, but what are some of these things that you would that you feel that the greater challenges that young people have today? What are some of these greater challenges? Just to unpack some of them.
Yeah. So, for example, in Highfields, we got a big problem with drug dealing. You got kids on the block, 19, 20. They're driving the best cars around. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They could be earning easily £500 a day or whatever it is.
But to be fair, drug dealing has been around for a few decades now.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah, a few decades. But the way it was, like in my time, I'll be honest, the Asian community wasn't really involved. There was only a pocket full, and everybody knew this guy was a drug dealer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was only a handful. You probably count them on one hand. Now, there's loads of people doing it. Yeah, mm-hmm. So it's just you've lost count.
Okay.
So it's become more accessible. It's become much easier. Why go to work when you can easily earn money in a much quicker way? So that's one aspect.
Sure. Drugs. Okay. What else?
Drugs. The level of in terms of a person wants to do zina now, it's much easier than the person what he had to go through 20, 30, 40 years ago. There you go,
people. That's what are these easy ways for? So some of our viewers don't do them. Where are these easy hangouts so we know which ones to avoid?
It's the rise of social media. You got all this Snapchat and this chat and God knows all these different apps, and it's just made it such more accessible to contact the opposite female,
the opposite female. If you nutty.
Yeah. So before school, college, or wherever you met them, and that was it. But now,
but look, let me just ask, just to unpack this slightly. Is it just the fact that somebody will have a relationship that is the really terrible thing here? Or what? Or are you saying it's the fact that there's, that they don't take relationships seriously? I mean, just to what exactly is the? Is it just the fact that now it's easier because we've got phones and social media? Obviously, when we were teenagers, mobile phones did not exist. So, now you can just say, hey, we'll meet up and you can arrange to have sex. But putting religion aside, sex, obviously, let's say for young people, when they're of a certain age, that's legal, it's natural. Like, people are going to be inclined to that anyway. Is that the great problem in and of itself, or is there more angles to this?
Uh,
Do you
I would say that,
understand the question?
yeah,
Yeah.
you're trying to say is it more accessible to have sexual relationships now?
No, that I accept it is. But when you said that, you see, you said that there's much greater fitna and challenges for young people today. So I'm curious, when you said, well, they have access to zina, or much easier access to having sex, I'm curious, that is that the challenge in itself, or do you mean from that, are you just speaking because in Islam there is no nikah, therefore this is haram, and that is the great problem, or is it that there's more angles to this?
Yeah, it's more angles in the sense that where fornication is so easily accessible than it was 30 years ago.
But I mean, what's the one may ask, what is the problem with sex being accessible? Because, like, obviously you're going
before marriage.
Okay, so are we just saying the only problem is just this one, well, there isn't an Islamic act, there isn't an Islamic contract. You see, because I would, in some things, agree. This is why I'm trying to see if we would maybe see eye to eye on this issue, because I don't think the issue personally is, I don't see that people having access to sex is a challenge. I would think that's natural human behavior, and it's just that people are as opportunistic as their opportunities. Obviously, we didn't have that opportunity of Instagram when we were younger, so people do. So I can't. Naturally, they're going to use it because they have it. I would feel the challenge isn't them having access to sex. That's natural, but I feel the challenge is that they struggle then with maintaining a relationship, because they're constantly being bombarded with greater gratification. Like, let's say they do hook up with a girl and they think, oh wow, but then now when they go back on Insta, there's 50 other girls that are even more prettier. Now, and even vice versa, it could be with girls and guys. Like, a girl now thinks, oh, that guy's amazing, but now she thinks, well, oh my God, this guy's even more amazing. Or, so what it's doing is, what I see as the challenge isn't necessarily that, oh, they've had sex. I see that I can understand, or people might say spiritually, Islamically, this is, it's not halal. I get that mas'ala, but I'm saying what I see as a greater challenge to them is actually then being able to be stable in a relationship. I don't know if you, I don't know, does that make sense? I can
see where you're coming from, in the sense that they're not equipped to be a husband or a wife. They've not learned the full responsibilities and what goes with the package in that sense. And like you said, it's become, who do you go for? I can get someone better. It's easily to access someone else. And like you say, it's just trying different sweets then. That's what they're going to end up doing.
Because look, let's be honest, people will say, real talk, just the issue of having access to much more sexual, let's say, certain entanglements, people will just say, look, you're just hating, because let's be honest, who doesn't want that? It's from the insani fitra to want that. It's not like, it's like saying, just because people have more access to money in a particular place or particular country, everybody would want more access to money. Everybody would want more access to these kind of entanglements. Or when I say everybody, I think definitely men for the most part, and many women too. So I'm just seeing it from a very realistic perspective, that what are the actual problems here? is it just, you know, people who are not from that generation and we're just hating on them? Are we just saying, yeah, you know, damn, we didn't have this?
Yeah, it's like there's studies out there where the teenagers now are suffering from depression, etc., just because they're not getting enough likes on their Instagram. So
Yeah.
there's this perception of how they look, how they appear on social media, and what people think of them. And it's all to
Yeah.
do with this fakery image and a lot of
Yeah.
this catfishing going on. So the pressures on them
And
is on a different scale
it
to what
is,
we face.
yeah. I so agree with you. I mean, that this thing of having a virtual profile that is so larger than life, you know, this whole having like making sure you have so many likes for each picture, slightly disconnected with the, oh, yep, you're back, was that. So but
Okay.
this demand, this pressure for, oh my god, I posted a picture, you know, let me constantly check it. Did it get more likes? Did it get any more likes? Did it, oh my god, it never got enough likes? That's got to be draining these people.
Yeah. And you just see these, everybody just taking these poses from here, from here. That's what I see these teenagers do nowadays. You know, where they're going out to meal, they're not enjoying the meal. It's just about a photo here, photo there. And it's kind of taking over their lives.
Yeah, man. I mean,
so,
it is. People have asked me. Somebody asked me. I'd like to take your take on it. If given the opportunity, we're at the same age, actually. I take it, right? So, given the opportunity, would you like to be a young person today? Like, let's say, like if you could be a 20-year-old today in 2020.
yeah, I'll be honest, my nuffs would love it.
You would, okay.
I'll be honest.
Wow, that's interesting. You see,
young.
because I actually said I wouldn't. You know, I'd be terrified to be a younger person today, because I find it so draining what they have to. You know, these kind of pressures that you're saying, this pressure to do this pressure to do that, this pressure to even things like relationships. And I just find it like that stage of life. And I honestly wouldn't. Like, it's, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, to be honest, to get I think, get me wrong, in terms of that side of it, I wouldn't like all the constant to be accepted by fellow peers or similar. But the other things have become much easier. I'm not just saying not the zina. No. I'm just saying, if a person, look, if I was in my Jahiliyyah days carried on, then I would. It's like paradise for me. Whoa, I can just pick your lot here. But
but I mean, you could
other things as well.
But I mean, you could do that now, or as opposed to being 20 years old. You're still young, athletic. I mean, everything's what. But so if you're going to say, well, I wouldn't do it now because of my religion, let's say my Islam, but then even if you're 20, you wouldn't do it because of. So why would you prefer to be 20 right now?
No, I would prefer if I was on the deen.
If you weren't on. Yeah, you know, I need to show you. I need to show you some fatwas. Spice up your life a little.
That's it. I need to come to you for more halal.
You know, I've said muta is permissible. You do know that.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that. Because I see it more. I think, look, I had this discussion with a friend actually recently, Momo. I don't know if you, or maybe some of the viewers know him, and he's young, in his mid-20s, and he kind of asked me that, and I said, you know, genuinely, I said that, look, I think we all as human beings have a fear of associated with age, in the sense of becoming old and weak. I mean, I definitely have that fear. I assume that that's a natural thing at some level. I don't have it at an obsessive level, but like obviously, I don't want to. People don't want to become weak. They don't want to become like lose their, abilities to do things. They don't, and they have a fear of becoming old and whatever. But that is human, I feel, and I just like everybody else have those fears. But being the way I am now at this stage of life, let's say I'm 41, I if I was given a choice, would I like to be 21? And this was the discussion, and I was saying that I wouldn't actually, because I find that equally, the pressure equally terrifying, and I think bloody hell, I don't know how these guys are going through it, because like you said, having all this, because they haven't proven themselves yet, have they, to themselves? Like, this need to constantly check, are other people validating my photo, or other people, giving me the thumbs up, or other people. And yeah, it's just, wow. I know you spoke earlier on about, or you've mentioned previously, and you've been vocal on things like relationships and marriages within the Muslim community. And this is such a big thing. I mean, marriages are a big thing anyway, but I get asked so much about relationships and people saying, look, I can't find somebody to get married to, or I can't. Do you get a lot of this? I don't mean personally, but I mean people coming to you. But you could say personally as well if you want.
Basically, these people who can't get married, I don't know what's wrong with these guys or her. There's so much fish out there. I think me and you open an account tomorrow on these apps. There's so many apps, single Muslim, God knows, much whatever they are. Yeah, the profiles will be up and running. So I don't understand. One of my mates, he opened one, and before you know it, he had a line of women wanted to approach him. So I don't know how they're finding it so difficult. So
next time somebody says to me, I'm gonna point them in your direction, Ustad. You hook them up.
Yeah.
But
there's loads of women out there.
And what about the other way? Not in the in the homosexual way, in the other way, as in women towards men.
Yeah. You know what it is with guys?
Yeah.
Guys are more choosy. And the guys who's not even, he looks like
that's interesting. Okay.
Half dead. Guys who looks half dead, he's not going to pull anything, and he wants a bloody Kim Kardashian. Yeah. So I think their expectations are just.
Do you feel girls are not as picky? Do you feel?
I don't think girls are as picky as the men. The girls are not picky as the men.
Okay. I don't know what people, if they agree or not, they can post some comments.
Yeah, I do find girls nowadays, unfortunately, look for, first thing, I think it's Beshe, the P.
Paisa.
Yeah. The guy's showing a bit of bling bling, and she thinks, yeah, I'm going to be, carrying the Gucci bags or Louis Vuitton bags or whatever. And that does attract, a lot of these girls nowadays, I'll be honest. So
is that not then being picky? Or you said, like that?
Yeah, in the sense.
Oh, you meant picky for looks. Looks.
Yeah, picky for looks.
Because let's be honest, guys are not going to have all the looks. But nowadays generation, maybe, I mean, are they not all very, it's all, trying to take care of themselves, groom themselves, spend as much time on cosmetics and as almost women? Or is that just what I'm seeing on social media?
No. That's increased as well. Male grooming has gone up. There's even male salons nowadays. So definitely, males are looking after themselves more. The amount of people that go into the gyms, males now.
I suppose, the gym thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you find a lot of people working out nowadays. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's an interesting So you feel that these relationships, but I definitely get swarmed by messages of people saying they're struggling to find a suitable partner. You don't get this amongst your kind of the younger people coming to you?
You get the odd. I've come across reverts, to be honest. Reverts where they say we find it
Oh,
hard
right.
to get married.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, but generally out there, there's
Well,
loads.
there you go. That's some good news, people. That's some good news. Yeah. The problem is nowhere near as difficult as some may assume.
Okay.
So
I need to open, I think, marriage
bureau think you're doing it. You're
bureau tips
doing it.
or some tips on tips on to pull straight away. What you need to do. They might be lacking confidence or
All
something.
right. Okay. Coach skills, life coach, people. Life coach.
Yeah.
So cool. Look at that. Right. Well, some people posting some questions. I know another thing I wanted to just pick your brains on a bit as well. This whole thing, you are quite vocal. You speak on obviously related to that one, and following on a greater connection with Masjid al-Aqsa
Yeah.
and these kind of things. You're involved in that, are you?
Yeah. So what happened was, I'd say about I think 9 or 10 years ago, I wanted to see Masjid Aqsa.
Okay.
You're the same age as me,
Yeah.
41. So can you remember? All I can remember on TV was Intifada. All you had was that Dome of the Rock, the beautiful building behind, and the constant news of the troubles that used to take place.
Yeah.
So I could always used to have that picture when I used to watch the news and have that in the back of my head. I never really knew much about Al-Aqsa apart from it's our third holiest place, but there was not much even by our ulama, to be honest. They never mentioned quite a lot of that at that time. So come say 10 years ago, I thought that was a couple of years just before I decided to step away from the Jamaat movement. I thought, let me kill two birds with one stone.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go khuruj fi sabilillah to Jordan.
Okay.
From Jordan, I'm going to cross the line into Palestine, and I'll get to see Palestine as well.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what happened. I ended up in the Markaz by myself, and they were like a bit perplexed. What's this random guy from England coming here for? And I was just honest. I want to come. I want to spend some time, and I want to go there. And they eventually said, "Yeah, all right." So I spent some time in Jamaat in Jordan, and then eventually found out there was a kind of an Ijtima taking place in Palestine.
Okay.
So I joined some
So
of the
all the
Tablighi brothers to,
Tablighi vibe
yeah,
still going on.
but vibes, yeah, still going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, eventually got to. It was a long story, but I'll cut it short. I eventually got to Masjid Aqsa
Mm-hmm.
because the guy who brought me into Palestine from Jordan, he goes, once you get into Israel, me and you, we can't be together because they'll harass
Just
you.
you and me. Is it
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
how controversial I am? I'm joking.
Yeah.
You mean generally
So,
people
so
can't
the,
be together?
yeah. So the Palestinians and foreigner, they'll
Ah,
distress
right.
them. So
Okay.
they goes, look, when you get to the border, I'll go my way, you go your way. I'll wait for you for a little while, and that's it. And then got to the border. They kept me there for a good 4 hours. I'd say 4 or 5 hours. Checked my bags. They went through everything. Uh, they asked me these the Yahud interrogation. They knew a lot of information. They were like, "All right, what are you? Sunni, Shia, Sunni. All right, what are you? Hanafi, Shafi, Hanbali, Salafi." I go, bloody hell, Hanafi. Then they go, "All right, Sufi, Tablighi, what?" They were
Or do you
narrowing it
follow
down.
Mufti Abu Layth? They go.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff, man.
Wow.
And so that was that. So I eventually got in. They gave me the visa to go in, and I'm looking for this guy. Where is this guy now? He's gone, long gone. Nowhere to be seen. All I can remember, the Ijtima was in a village called Yatta. It's near Hebron.
Okay.
So all I knew. So I'm going to the taxi stand, and I'm going Yatta, Yatta, and they were like, what are you talking about?" Yeah. Then I go, shit, what should I do? Then I could just take me to Jerusalem. Ended up in Masjid Aqsa,
Jerusalem.
just Jerusalem, and got there. All I know, I'm in Aqsa. I'm just praying, I'm making dua, and I met a Tablighi brother, but you could tell by the umama, and I told him, mashallah, I've come here, and I need to get to the yatta ishtamana. So that was my first experience, really.
I have a bit of a controversial opinion on this, and I'm curious, how damaging do you think my opinion is?
Yeah, I heard a rumor that you're not too keen. You're down with the Middle East peace treaty, and
right. Okay, that's right. So I clearly condemn Israel for the atrocities they do and stuff. Clearly, and I've mentioned that every single time. In fact, at one time, I was one of the few in the English-speaking world, imams or whatever online kind of religious scholars that was actually openly speaking about the Gaza attacks. This is going a few. I think this going a few years back, when they were doing this bombardment non-stop, and there were very few people that I was seeing on Facebook that were actually speaking against it. Now, I mean imams, that is. Right, so I clearly condemn what Israel do. I condemn their whole kind of the occupation and things like that. That said, I recognize that it's here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so what now? It's like a person has done something, and the question is, well, what can you do about it? Because the person, what he's done is wrong, but what can we do about it now? So I've said that, well, let's just be real about the situation. Israel is not going to disappear. And I've said that I would rather, this is not that they're going to listen to me, the Palestinians, but I said that they should be allowed to just migrate. And there should be a kind of a package where people are relocated. And they're sent to different Arab, let's say, countries or cities, and they're given financial they're compensated very comfortably. Obviously,
the
Palestinians, yeah. So, like in Gaza, because right now they're living in a hell. It's a hellhole right now. It's a prison, a living prison. So rather than live like that and being killed, they should just be allowed to pursue life. So yeah, but people ain't that fond of that opinion. The other thing, the other issue as well is, to me, Jerusalem isn't really that special. So, once you feel that, well, what is actually so special about Jerusalem, apart from the fact that in the past prophets lived there, some prophets may have visited, like they say, Ibrahim alayhi salam, the maqam of Ibrahim, whether Sulaiman alayhi salam may have or may not have been there, or Dawood, or some other, but I accept that, like, let's say Jesus was there and other prophets were there. Now, I don't believe the Isra wal Mi'raj was to Jerusalem, so I don't believe our prophet was there, but okay, other people may believe that, but I feel the Isra was a vision anyway. But once, this is another thing, because if you don't feel Jerusalem is as sacred as other people, because to people it's as sacred as Mecca almost, like, it's the Thalith al-Haramain, then, the question to me is, it's just a dispute over land. And I feel it's the land of the Palestinians that has been wrongfully taken, like Kashmir, or like Burma, or like Rohingya, or it's an issue of land that's been usurped. But it isn't an issue of religion, so this is where, because of that view, I wonder, I'm sure this is very problematic for several people. I'm sure they get very even offended by it. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know whether people. I don't know how you would feel with those views. What's because you're quite passionate, I take it, about Jerusalem.
Yeah, because I've been there after that first journey many times after that, and the imams of Masjid al-Aqsa, they said to us, look, all we don't want your money. We don't want you to do anything else. All we want is you to come here. And so the sanctity of Masjid al-Aqsa remains, and it's shown the importance to the Muslim Ummah that this is also our third holiest place. Obviously, you may dispute that, but there are obviously, you cannot deny the fact there's many ahadith which gives the fadail of Masjid al-Aqsa. So some of them may be weak, but there are obviously authentic ones in there as well. And for the fact that when you go there yourself and you see the persecution what the Palestinians are going through on a day-to-day basis, then you will realize, like, by us coming here, at least we're helping some of the Muslim economy, going to their hotels, the shops, etc. And obviously, if you believe that the Masjid al-Aqsa belongs to the Muslims, because day by day the Israelis are trying to get deeper and deeper in taking Masjid al-Aqsa. So obviously Salahuddin, the likes of Salahuddin Ayyubi, rahmatullah, he liberated it from the Crusaders.
Of course.
And the way we see it is it's been occupied again. And that's the kind of stance that I think
let's say, with this that you mentioned the suffering of the Palestinians, and I totally agree with you. It is a violation of human rights. It is not just a violation, it is a perpetration of war crimes against humanity. It is a genocide. It's not just like, they're not just, they are committing a gradual genocide of the Palestinian people. So wouldn't you agree that they should be allowed to just to leave and go to a different part of the world?
They could if they want, but they don't.
They're not actually allowed to.
Well, certain of them could.
Because what passport would they have?
Yeah, so some of them have got these special kind of permits.
Yeah.
They're like Israeli permits.
But I mean, like,
so they would travel on. Some of them got Jordanian passports.
Okay.
They don't have Palestinian passports. They have Jordanian passports.
But I'm assuming that's a small minority of Palestinians who have Jordanian passports.
No, I'd say the majority have the Jordanian.
Oh.
The minority would have the Israeli passports.
Oh, okay. But this is in Gaza, because I would have thought that the people in Gaza are trapped. Because they've got Israel on both sides, and they can't leave. Because how do you leave? You need, first of all, international documents, and you need a border to leave.
Yeah, Gaza's different. So they would need some special documents to leave, etc. But all the other Muslim areas like Ramallah.
Oh, West Bank. Okay, the West Bank. Okay, but what about Gaza, where there's a lot of bombardment? There's a lot of, because that usually is getting attacked. It's Gaza. They're attacking Gaza often. So would you? I'm just curious. Would you agree that they should be allowed to leave and go, or is that like a bad idea?
The way I've not spoken to any Gazans myself, but the other people from West Bank, etc., who are going through a lesser degree of occupation and terrorization, if you want to call it that, the way they see it is this land belongs to the Muslims.
Yeah.
And by us leaving this land, we're giving ourselves up to the Yahud. Yeah. And the way they see anybody who does that is a sellout. So it's frowned upon.
And that is true. That is true. Yeah. I agree that is the truth. But is it not a bitter truth that is better to take than to see your own children die? Like, if this is my house, or this is my thing, or this is, let's say, it's my money, or it's my thing, or it belongs to. But if somebody was going to kill my children, if I had to make that, like land, what does land mean to me? Like, if it means that my children will be killed over it, I'd rather, land, I'm going to die, it's going to belong to someone else. It's going to stay here. It's not, I agree that it is a selling out. It is a selling out. I agree with that. But is it not better that your children have the right to live? freely in a world, as opposed to being brought up like in fear and then maimed or killed or tortured or.
Me personally, if majority of the Palestinians I've met near around Aqsa, etc., the way they see it, Allah has placed them there to defend the Masjid al-Aqsa, and they would happily give their lives of themselves and their children. And their children are raised like that, in that mentality as well, that we're here to guard Masjid al-Aqsa. And whatever money you give us, literally around Masjid al-Aqsa, the houses would go for easily $1 million, $2 million. People, the
Israelis would happily pay. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. They would happily buy them.
Yeah, they would happily buy them, but they would not do it.
But do you think some of this narrative, that I know they have this narrative, by the way, that I know that they say we would never sell and we're happy to die for this land because it belongs to Muslims, it belongs to Islam, and sorry, it doesn't belong to Islam, but it belongs to Muslims, and they are dhalim and they're usurpers. But do you not feel that some of this narrative has actually been fed to them to the extent that they've then believed it? Like, do you not think they've been partially brainwashed into believing that being told that you guys are heroes, stay here, suffer, all the other Arab states telling them, Jordan, Saudi, the Gulf, the other part, the Levant, telling them you guys are heroes, they themselves would never put up with that. I mean, is it not like politics to create a barrier between Israel and their countries, to have an Arab settlement that, because if all of that was Israel, Jordan would be in danger, the Gulf would be in, I mean, it's good to have a buffer, like to keep, a distance. So what do you think of that? Do you think some of it is being fed to them by the narrative that, don't worry, put up with it, Allah will reward you? Do you think that?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. The way, but then everybody's fed with some kind of ideology, and so you've got Hamas and you've got Fatah, the two main parties there. Both have got kind of different ways of achieving their goals. So depending who you follow there, you're going to be, if you want to call it brainwashing, whatever the way they feed you, you're going to be sticking to their views. So both, far as I can recollect, is they both have the similar stance on you shouldn't leave.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think all Palestinians have that, and I mentioned on a Monday night that when I mentioned this view of mine, some Palestinian, I got a message from a Palestinian girl, a European Palestinian girl, who was very offended by what I said, and like deeply offended. And although she was very, somebody who's like, I assume is a supporter of me and watches my clips, but felt that this was offensive, deeply offensive, what I've said, that how can you ask the Palestinians to give up Palestine? They love Palestine. It is their home. It's like, let's say you're from, let's say, ethnically from Gujarat, or let's say India, I'm ethnically, let's say, Pakistani, whatever. It's asking these people to give that up. Now, I did say in my explanation on Monday nights, you see, I'm not saying in ideal circumstances people would give up territory, but it is what it is. You've got a choice where you suffer, you live like this, you're treated like dirt, you're killed. Or is it just land at the end of the day? Is it since when is it more valuable than life? Like it's a piece of earth. Why is it more valuable than human life?
Yeah, that's the different mindset now. I forgot the famous writer that came from Palestine. The Mossad eventually assassinated him.
Okay.
His name's gone off. He was part of the PLO, and so he in one of his interviews he said, you're telling us to dialogue? That's like dialoguing with the sword and the neck. You're putting the sword on our necks, and you want us to dialogue with these people. For us, you might think it's land, similar to what you were saying. The reporter was asking him, but to us, it's more than just land. To us, it's everything. It's our freedom. It's our right. It's our it's something that we pride ourselves on.
Yeah.
He quoted a few things. So for them to take that out of them, or even myself, I am a stronger believer. I kind of disagree with yourself. I think the Palestinians should, the way they see it is, if these Middle Eastern countries who've recently agreed to the recognizing of Israel, it gives them less bargaining chips to have a two-state solution at least. If you're saying, oh, we're already recognizing West Bank being occupied, this part being occupied, what bargaining chips are you going to go to the Israelis with? You understand? So that's the way how the Palestinians see these negotiations at the moment. So it's that if you have the resistance, and inshallah, hopefully we pray that a two-state solution is solved, then things will get better.
And I agree. I actually, just for people who haven't watched my other thing, when I mentioned that my opinion, I actually began by grading it and saying that the ideal scenario is that the Israel is an occupying state. It's actually occupied, falsely, illegally occupied to Palestine. Secondly, I said, so the ideal situation is that it never happens, but it has happened. The second scenario I said was the next best thing was a two-state solution. However, I said that I can't see that ever happening, unfortunately. Do you feel that that could actually happen then?
I think it can happen. It can happen. Never know. Obviously,
You think Israel would
America
give Palestine a state?
parts of the land, I think they would eventually, inshallah, give something to them. It might not be what they wanted, but eventually they would give them something.
You see, not land, because land obviously they've got, but to give them a state would mean that they would have their own passport, their own currency, their own potential military. Now, that would just mean that, like, strategically, that would just mean they're just going to arm up and attack us. Like, this is how the Israelis are thinking, ain't they? They're thinking, like, if you've occupied a land wrongfully, like if you've come into somebody's house, like imagine you come into this house and you forcefully take this house over, and you say, okay, you're going to kill now all the members of this household gradually, and you're going to torture us. So let's say I say to you, okay, I tell you what. Firstly, I want you to leave. And you say, well, that ain't going to happen. And then I say to you, okay, I tell you what, let's split the floors. I get to stay on the bottom floor with everybody and my lifestyle, and you get to stay on the top floor. Now, if you give me, the moment you stop me from being a hostage and you give me my freedom, and I can go out, meet my friends, I can meet people, I can equip, I can come back, it's inconceivable that I'm going to let you stay. I'm going to definitely snatch back what was mine. So, and I'm sure that the person that's the occupier knows that. They know that, look, if I let this person, go get a gun, he's obviously going to shoot me, because I'm the wrongdoer here. So I can't see them, unfortunately, ever. I mean, I wish they did. That was my actual second thing, saying I wish there was a two-state solution. But I unfortunately felt that I can't see Israel ever doing that.
I think the Palestinians, like you said, if they did eventually get the state, I think they would think twice now, because after the 1967 war, where all the Arab countries, surrounding Arab countries, tried to take over Israel, they were dealt with on a military level. Israel took on all the countries put
Yeah,
together.
it did. The famous war.
So
The famous.
the famous the famous
It
war.
was.
They just, with their air power, they just bombarded all the airfield, all the aeroplanes that all these Arab countries had, Egypt, whatever, the surrounding countries. So in terms of military, they're well advanced.
Oh
Most
yeah,
of
incredibly. They are like first world, in that sense.
yeah.
Nuclear
A lot of
strong,
the
I believe. Israel is nuclear strong. As far as I'm under the impression they're
they must
definitely
have
nuclear strong.
must have some
Yeah,
nuclear, yeah. And in terms of a lot of the systems, sophisticated software systems, the weapon system is designed in Israel. So they're way ahead, and Mossad is known for their sophistication.
Yeah, somebody's asked a very interesting question here. They said that, look, would I say the same thing with Kashmir? Right. Now that's an interesting point. You see, because it then puts certain things into perspective. Now, I would say if such a thing was possible, okay, then sure. But there are a number of realistic issues with obviously Kashmir is not Palestine, which is not then Burma, which is not Rohingya. Every case has its own politics going on. So in Kashmir, the question would be, you see, there's a huge question of, if you say, okay, relocate these people, the question would be that, one, obviously, where would these people go? Because they don't have that to say, well, okay, they could be dispersed into, let's say, dispersed into India, the rest of India. It isn't going to be accommodating in that way. It would never be financially reimbursing for them in that way, ever, conceivably. It would never happen. Thirdly, Kashmir is a state that is being disputed by parts of it by international states, 3 international governments. China disputes a certain part of Kashmir as theirs. Pakistan disputes Kashmir as theirs. India disputes Kashmir as theirs. So it's a whole different political issue. It's like the other countries wouldn't accept that anyway. So China would not accept that let's say around Ladakh and those places, if those Kashmiris were to even give it up, it wouldn't still accept India. It's not going to accept, because it says that is actually part of China. Now, Pakistan wouldn't accept it either. They would say, no, that's actually part of Pakistan. So the issue of Kashmir is not the same issue in many ways. It's actually you've got 3, 3 nuclear strong states all disputing a territory, and who gets it. It's not an issue of just the Kashmiri people and the Indian government. It's the Indian government and 2 other governments involved, all of whom are nuclear strong, and they've all got issues with each other. So it's not a solution. Even if the Kashmiri people, let's say you uprooted the Kashmiri people, moved them out of Kashmir, the problem would still stay there. You've got 2 other governments saying, no, that's still our country. It's part of our land. It doesn't resolve the problem. So, and in fact, it would probably escalate a war. Because if the Indian army, let's say they removed the Kashmiri people out of Kashmir and moved in, and they completely militarized the zone. It's already militarized, but they completely moved in the army. China would immediately move its army to the borders, and Pakistan would immediately, and it would potentially trigger a nuclear war. So it would be a devastation suggesting that for Kashmir. Whereas with the Palestine issue, it's not countries disputing it. Obviously, you've got the Palestinian people, and they're trapped, especially the Gazan. And to me, it was more an issue of saying, well, look, life is more important. But I do understand that to some people, they say values are more important than life. We can sacrifice life over values. I do get that. But I just wanted, because I thought that's a very good question, though. People saying, look,
yeah, that's a good question.
And it's not, and I'm not saying that because let's say ethnically I'm from Kashmir, or it's because it's not. I mean, that Pakistan side of Kashmir, it's nothing to do with that. It's actually that is not the problem there. That the Kashmir, ironically, the shame is that the fight in Kashmir is actually not even about the people. It's actually just about that land, which is strategic between three nation states. Whereas in Palestine, it is about a people who have had that land usurped. And it's not actually to do with originally strategy. It was more to do with religion originally and ethnicity. So the Jewish people and Zionism, we want to set up a state, Mount Zion, a return of the Israelites to Israel, the united monarchy of Israel. So there's a lot of religion and it's very different. But yeah. Shall we?
So Kashmir is more like a Kurdistan, where it falls into 3-4 different countries, and a Kurdistan is never going to be created.
Yeah, I mean, except Kashmir does exist as a geographical location, because I know Kurdistan, I don't think it does. Oh, I could be wrong. No, actually, it does in Iraq and stuff like that recently. But yeah, maybe in some ways a bit more similar, except I think it's more tense. Kashmir, I think, is one of the most potentially dangerous situations that humanity faces, because the countries that are fighting over it are all nuclear strong and they're all a bit loopy. Like they're the kind of countries that if push goes to shove, they might just bloody trigger a nuclear war. And if those countries triggered a nuclear war, it would be the end of most of human civilization as we know it, because it's not, these nuclear bombs are not like those in the past. These nuclear bombs would trigger chain reactions because they've got so many more nuclear heads in their country. If they landed a nuclear bomb there, it would cause a ridiculous reaction to a huge part of the globe. It wouldn't be. So I fear the danger of what's going on there is so much more. It has, unfortunately, the potential to be a human catastrophe. It has that danger. Whereas Kurdistan is just it's a human, local, regional tragedy. So you've got a lot of suffering, and I don't even understand. Kurdistan, it makes no sense to me why those people suppress their culture, why they suppress, these people shouldn't be allowed to speak Kurdish, they shouldn't be allowed to. Since when has this ever? And they're all Muslim. It's like we share the same faith, we share, what is the big deal that they speak Kurdish, or they, are not Arabs, or they. I feel that fight is so petty, and it's just ridiculous against the Kurdish. Obviously, they want to make a country, which makes it political. I get that, but it began with Saddam and these people saying, "Okay, let's just bomb the Kurds," or they're not allowed to speak Kurdish, or they're not allowed to. Yeah. Shall we take a few questions? If people have got a few questions, I know Ustad isn't a vampire, and if there are any rapid questions, you can fire them here, and I'll present them to the Ustad. Let me just see. I'll bring up the Facebook thing as well. Right. So, people saying. I've done quite a bit of talking today. I have. Apologies, Ustad. It's this energy drink. Right. Well, here's your opportunity. If there were any, whilst that opportunity is there, Ustad, what if I know you're quite locally active? You mentioned that. Look, I do a lot of my things. I've got a little boxing club that that you kind of oversee in Leicester. For people who want to connect with you, find out a bit more about what you're involved in, what are the best things to do? What's the best route to connect, and maybe some of your projects like this boxing club?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook first. Ismail Shaffi, I'll be there. And my boxing club, to be honest, I don't have much of a social media presence. I need to start something regarding that. That's just on WhatsApp, really. So those of you in Leicester, it's based on Bartholomew Street. So recently there was a stabbing by two Muslim brothers who one killed another. So yeah, it's famous for that.
What is famous for that? Sorry, the boxing.
No, the street where the boxing club is on.
Okay.
A murder took place, a stabbing took place where one Muslim lad stabbed up
And
another
Abel and Cain, Habil and Qabil.
Yeah, yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
Damn.
And unfortunately, the other guy died. Yeah, so yeah. But yeah, that's based on Bartholomew Street. I usually come out in Ramadan, our local radio, Ramadan radio.
All
That's when I
right.
kind of come out.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people understand coming out to mean something else. Sheikh, just be warned. Be warned. They think that's an odd time to choose that to come out during Ramadan. Oh. Right. So cool. People, it's been absolutely awesome as always. Today, I must apologize. The energy drink, it had me talking so much. But Ustad, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'm very grateful. Shukran for participating, sharing your thoughts, showing that diversity. Keep that good fight going, man, in Leicester. It's much needed. Right. Damas y caballeros, people, les presento the man, the myth himself, Ust Ismail Shaffi. Shukran once again. I'm going to put up the page. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, then what the hell? You know what? Then in that case, visit that boxing club. And Ustad, if you... yeah, definitely. I'll be sharing Ustad's profile page as well on my YouTube description. So look out for that. Cool. People, wherever you are, take very good care of yourselves. Wassalamullahi alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Likewise to you, Ustad. Salamullahi alaikum.
Salam.